Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we are totally demystifying the incredible diagnostic tools of linear sweep and cyclic voltammetry. We're going to take you from the actual physical lab setup straight through to deciphering some seriously complex reaction kinetics. By the end of this, you'll see how a simple, deliberate variation in voltage acts as a real-time window into the invisible, microscopic world of electron transfer. It's fascinating stuff.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for visualizing these invisible transfers. We'll start with number 1, the 3-electrode setup. Then, 2, linear sweep voltammetry. 3, the cyclic voltammetry trip. 4, decoding the famous duck shape. And finally, 5, kinetics and scan rates. Let's just jump right in.
Part 1, the 3-electrode setup. Let's quickly ground these abstract concepts in the actual physical reality of the lab.
Now take a close look at the potentiostat and glass cell right here, because this is where the chemical magic actually happens. You've got the magnetic stir at the bottom, the nitrogen purge bubbling away to remove any reactive oxygen, and sitting right there in the center of the solution are 3 electrodes. You know, this isn't just abstract theory. This is a highly precise, tightly controlled environment specifically designed to manipulate and measure electrons on a microscopic scale.
So the absolutely crucial point here is understanding the specific, distinct jobs of these 3 electrodes. First, the working electrode. This is often made of glassy carbon, platinum, or gold, and it's where the actual oxidation or reduction event takes place. Now, to measure the exact voltage happening right there, we need a reliable benchmark. That's our reference electrode, something like silver/silver chloride. But here's the catch. We absolutely cannot pass a significant current through our reference, or we'd completely ruin its pristine stability. And that is exactly why we introduced the counter-electrode, which is often just a simple platinum wire. Honestly, think of the counter-electrode as the bodyguard for the reference. It completes the circuit and balances the current flow, ensuring the reference electrode remains completely undisturbed.
Moving on to part 2, linear sweep voltammetry. Let's treat the voltage sweep as a simple one-way street.
In linear sweep voltammetry, the voltage changes continuously at a specific scan rate, causing a current response the moment our electroactive species react. Think of it like you're slowly, steadily turning a dial from left to right. As that potential steadily increases or decreases, while nothing much happens at first, the current you see is just a small, relatively flat capacitive baseline. But once we hit that specific magic potential where our target molecule can either gain or lose an electron, boom! A Faradaic current begins to flow.
And plotting that current response directly against the voltage gives us this brilliantly identifiable peak as the analyte rapidly oxidizes or reduces. Notice how, as the voltage ramps up over time, the resulting current shoots up right alongside it. As the reaction accelerates, the current just spikes. Eventually though, and this is key, we run out of fresh molecules right at the surface of the electrode. They've all been converted. So what happens? The current hits a peak and then gradually trails off as new molecules struggle to swim in from the bulk solution.
But what happens if we don't just stop at the end of that one-way street? What if we decide to turn the car around and come right back? Part 3, the cyclic voltammetry trip.
This is where we see exactly how cyclic voltammetry, or CV, goes way beyond the single sweep of LSV. By reversing the potential, we create a closed loop, successfully capturing both the oxidation and the reduction processes. While LSV gives you that single lonely peak, CV sweeps forward to oxidize the molecules and then sweeps right on backward to reduce those exact same molecules back to their original state. You get a cathodic trace going one way and an anodic trace going the other. It's the full round trip. And you can clearly see that journey in this triangular waveform. It defines the forward and reverse path between our 2 switching potentials over time. We start at our initial potential, ramp up linearly to the switching potential, and then instantly reverse direction, ramping back down at the exact same speed. This continuous, rhythmic cycling until we reach a steady state is exactly what makes CV such a remarkably versatile, powerful diagnostic tool.
Which brings us to part 4, decoding the duck shape. Time to make sense of these rather unusual peaks and valleys. When you look at a classic cyclic voltammogram, it quite literally looks like the silhouette of a duck. So, why are there peaks in the first place? This is the fundamental question we have to ask to truly understand the thermodynamics happening right at the electrode surface. Why doesn't the current just rise up and stay totally flat? Why do we get these sharp peaks and deep valleys? Well, the secret lies in a delicate, continuous dance between voltage, local concentration, and diffusion.
The Nernst equation is the absolute mathematical heartbeat here. It basically proves that as potential changes, the local concentration of our electroactive species absolutely must adjust to maintain equilibrium. Think about what that really means for a second. If you sweep the voltage, the ratio of oxidized to reduced molecules right at the surface of the electrode has to change to satisfy this equation. And to achieve this new ratio, molecules undergo electron transfer. That physical transfer of electrons, that is exactly what we are measuring as current.
So it's this sequence of rapid depletion followed by a sluggish delivery of new molecules that perfectly carves out our iconic duck shape. Let's take a famous example, like ferrocene. As the voltage hits its absolute sweet spot, ferrocene rapidly oxidizes into ferrocenium. The current spikes, bam, the head of the duck is formed. But very quickly, the area right next to the electrode becomes completely depleted of ferrocene. A microscopic diffusion layer starts to grow outward. Now, new ferrocene molecules have to travel further and further through this layer just to reach the electrode, which drastically slows down the whole process. The current drops off, forming the duck's tail. When you reverse the voltage, the exact same thing happens in the opposite direction to the newly formed ferrocenium, carving out the bottom half of our duck. Make sense?
Finally, Part 5, Kinetics and Scan Rates. Let's see how we can actually measure the speed of these electron transfers.
By isolating this heavy-hitting equation right here, the Randall-Sevich equation, we can see that faster scan rates predictably yield much larger peak currents. Why? Simply because that diffusion layer doesn't have the time to grow as thick. Notice how the peak current is directly proportional to the square root of the scan rate. It's essentially a microscopic tug of war between how fast you spin the voltage dial versus how fast the molecules can actually swim through the solution. If you sweep the voltage really fast, the reaction happens instantly before that sluggish diffusion layer can expand out into the bulk liquid. The molecules react intensely and locally, completely driving up that maximum current.
And this graph brilliantly illustrates that exact phenomenon. Look at how stepping the scan rate from 50 all the way to 500 millivolts per second visibly inflates those current peaks. It's literally like watching a balloon expand. The fundamental shape remains roughly the same, but the amplitude of both the oxidation and reduction peaks stretches outward beautifully as we increase that scan rate. Now, by analyzing how these shapes expand at high speeds, researchers can instantly spot if a reaction is smoothly reversible, like our perfectly symmetric duck, or if it's kinetically constrained and irreversible. You see, in a perfectly reversible system, electron transfer is blindingly fast. The peaks stay beautifully symmetric no matter what. But if the electron transfer is sluggish, we call it irreversible. As you scan faster and faster, the system just struggles to keep up. The peaks become stretched, broader, and totally asymmetric. You actually have to apply significantly more voltage, a much greater overpotential, just to force the sluggish reaction to happen at all. And the real-world application of all this? It's absolutely massive. This technique allows us to screen new, highly efficient catalysts. It's how we probe the health of lithium-ion batteries, and it's exactly how we innovate the renewable energy solutions of tomorrow. Whether you're mapping the voltage hysteresis of anionic redox reactions in next-generation cathode materials, or just figuring out if a breakthrough drug molecule can safely gain and lose an electron without completely breaking apart, cyclic voltammetry is the undisputed hidden workhorse making all of it possible.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to challenge you. Think about how you can apply the simple sweep of a voltage dial to uncover the hidden chemical kinetics in your own work. You now know the lab setup, the crucial difference between a one-way sweep and a full cycle, why that famous duck shape exists, and how to manipulate time itself to reveal reaction speeds. The tools are right here in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and until next time, keep exploring the microscopic mechanics of our world.